Hello, this is a new YouTube channel, and this will be for election predictions. And the goal of this channel is to analyze the electoral map, the Senate map, the House map, and to make predictions without getting into the politics and, all that stuff. I mean, of course, we're going to talk about the politics, but not be biased, I guess you could say. And we're going to closely analyze every race to see who seems to be favored to win, and it'll be interesting. These things will change as we get closer to the election, and this election will certainly have very big consequences no matter who wins, and yeah, it'll be a very important election. So, as you can see, I have an electoral map here in front of me. With 200, you need 270 electoral votes out of the 538 electoral votes to win. The thing I'm using is called Yet Another Political Map Simulator. You can find it online. There's also an app for it, and basically they have a bunch of political maps for the US as well as other countries for you to make your own election predictions. It's very accessible and it has a lot of good features. So right now, we know the Republican candidate is going to be Trump, Donald J. Trump, and the Democrat is going to likely be Joseph R. Biden, or Joe Biden. Nobody really calls him Joseph. I spelled his name wrong. He's the Biden is the Democrat, Trump is the Republican, of course, and as you can see, there's different colors. So the darkest color for either side means the state is safe, and that usually means they have that they're going to win it, barring some massive blowout, which could happen, but it's pretty unlikely. The next color down would be considered a likely state, and this means that a candidate has about an 80% chance of winning said state. The next color down is lean, which means that the candidate has advantage, but it's not a done deal yet for them, and they should have maybe about a 2 in 3 chance of winning. And tilt means that one candidate is a slight favorite, but it could go either way. So right now I have an electoral map. Everything's a toss-up, but that's of course not the case in the Electoral College. Most states would be considered safe states at this point in time, in the way the different demographics vote. But we could fill in, so why don't we fill in the states that don't need much discussion and we know we're going to be safe no matter what. I'm going to leave out a few states that I will eventually fill in as safe, but maybe you could make an argument. So these are all the quote-unquote safe states for the incumbent president, Donald Trump, and these are the ones that are objectively safe, hands down, no question. That gives him already 71 electoral votes. States that are safe for Biden, hands down, no question about it, make up about 116 electoral votes. Now, there's some states here that I didn't fill in that are safe states, but I just thought I would discuss them. Utah was interesting because in 2016, even though Trump won, he won by a wide amount. Nobody actually got 50% of the vote since there was Evan McMullin running, who kind of split the vote for Trump. And even then, Hillary Clinton came nowhere close to winning the state, so I think this state would be fair to consider as safe Trump for the time being. Some other states that I left out, well, one is Mississippi. Mississippi has been a little bit closer than some of the other states in the Deep South, and there's a very high African American population, and in general, that population tends to vote Democrat. I'm going to call it safe only because the electorate in Mississippi is not very elastic. There's very few swing voters, and yeah, and it usually goes to the Republicans by a pretty handy margin. Another state on here that should probably be considered safe but isn't is Indiana. Indiana is interesting because it went to Obama in 2008 in his landslide election, actually. But Trump performed pretty well in Indiana in 2016. Democrats lost a Senate seat there despite having the incumbency advantage in 2018, and they lost it by like 6 points, which is quite a bit, considering it was a wave year and they had the incumbency advantage, and the Democrat was seen as a moderate Democrat, so that should be considered a safe state. Kansas, some people like to say it might become competitive only because Laura Kelly won the governor's race. At the end of the day, it's Kansas, and it's going to go red. Missouri used to be a bellwether state and a very critical swing state. Now it's safe for Trump for the time being, I'm going to say. South Carolina, I could definitely see the state narrowing down after Biden did really, really well there in the primary, the Democratic primary, but he doesn't really have a path to victory there unless he's doing really well nationally, so that's going to be safe. Alaska's weird because there's a lot of third-party voters, and it can be a very elastic state at times, but for the time being, I'm going to consider it safe for Trump, but that can change, definitely. As for Biden, some other states that are going to be safe are Washington. It's just a very blue state overall. Same thing, Illinois. Cook County, which is Chicago, essentially, controls the rest of the state, and Trump really has no shot at winning it at this point. The GOP was not able to hold on to a Senate seat there in 2016, despite having a quote-unquote moderate Republican incumbent who was relatively popular. So that's going to stay in Biden's column. Maine's 1st district, probably going to be safe for Biden. New Jersey is a very suburban state. It has been somewhat contested in the past, but I think that this cycle, Trump is very unpopular in New Jersey. His approval rating has not been good, and Bob Menendez was still able to win the Senate seat there in 2018, despite having some issues. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, I think are also all safe. Delaware because Biden's from there. He used to be the senator of Delaware. Rhode Island and Connecticut are going to be considered safe just because they usually go to the Democrats by pretty wide margins. And even though Rhode Island swung pretty hard to the right in 2016, Trump kind of hit a ceiling there, at least a temporary ceiling for the Republicans for now. Oregon on the West Coast, even though the margin might be only like 11 points, Trump doesn't really have a path to victory there. It has Portland, and I just can't see it happening. So yeah, these are all the states that I'm going to consider as safe for either side, which gives Trump 122 electoral votes and Joe Biden 183 electoral votes. Next, I'm going to do the likely states. So likely means they have an 80% chance of winning the state. Hi. Sorry about that. My audio had cut out. Luckily, it's perfect timing because we had just finished up all the safe states, and now we're going to move on to the likely states. So the first state I'm going to consider as likely, and you could make the argument it's safe, is Montana. Generally, it is a safe state for the Republicans. The only reason why I'm considering it likely, though, is because the Democrats have a competitive Senate race, a competitive governor's race, and a competitive House race to invest money in. And there's not that many voters in Montana, so I do think the state will get more attention than it would in a regular cycle, potentially pulling some voters to Democrats. Also, like Jon Tester, the Democrat Senate candidate in 2018, just won a lot more votes than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton got about 175,000 votes in the state. Jon Tester won a Senate seat with about 250,000 votes. So, yeah, I'm going to consider that likely for now. Some state I would consider likely for Biden is New Mexico. Again, you could argue this is a safe state, but it's been pretty reliably Democrat for a little while. and I don't see that flipping anytime soon. The Democrats had a good midterm there, no reason to expect it to flip. Colorado and Virginia, both likely states. They've used to be competitive, but they've taken a pretty solid and harsh, or a pretty solid trend towards the Democratic Party, and there's no reason why Biden would lose either of the states, considering Hillary Clinton won both of them by pretty decent margins, and I can't really see Biden losing too many of the Hillary Clinton voters. And if you add another point or two to the trend to the left for both of these states, they'll probably even go to him by a little bit larger margins. Let's see, are there any other likely states on here? I'm kind of struggling with both Ohio and Texas. They're both very close between being lean and likely states. Well, Maine's 2nd district is likely. It's a district Trump did pretty well, and it's very rural, and I just can't see really Biden winning it. He's not really from the region. He doesn't have great appeal there necessarily. So, but back to Ohio and Texas. I'm struggling between lean and likely. They're right on the border. Biden definitely, I think, will do better in Ohio than Hillary Clinton, but I think I'm just going to both consider them lean for now out of caution. So that way, both lean out of caution, but they could easily move to likely. Texas has just taken a pretty consistent shift towards the Democratic Party in recent elections. Beto O'Rourke came really close to unseating Ted Cruz. Ohio, even though Trump did really well there, Biden seems to be a better fit for the state than Hillary Clinton with his ties to the auto industry and like his whole thing around like, oh, I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, you know? So I think that those states will narrow down a little bit in 2020, but I don't think Biden's necessarily going to flip them. Georgia, similar thing to Texas, has been taking a pretty solid trend to the left, mainly because of the Atlanta metro area, as that has continued to grow. I don't think it's necessarily ripe to flip yet, but we'll see. I could see the state definitely moving into a tilt column or even toss-up column. It has narrowed up recently. Some polls have suggested that it will be a very close race, so I would definitely keep an eye on that. Iowa, it could go, this is a state I'm not sure how it's going to vote. It could go to Trump by like 17 points. It could go to Biden by a few points. It's a very elastic state, so I'm keeping in the leading column, even though Trump could definitely win it by a huge margin. In 2018, the Democrats got more raw votes in the House than they did than Hillary Clinton got in 2016. So it'll definitely be interesting. The Democrats have some voters to gain there, but so does Trump. There's a lot of like legacy Democrats who maybe are kind of are going to vote for Trump this time. I don't know. Nevada, it's close to being a likely state, but out of caution, I'm going to keep it as a lean state for now. It's a state Hillary Clinton won by 2 points. The Democrats flipped the Senate seat here in 2018, and it's a pretty urban state. Even though it doesn't have a high population, most of the people live in like Las Vegas, right? So that's something you have to consider. The rest of the state is very, very, very rural and has very few people. Maine at large, I would consider that lean state. Hillary Clinton won it. Democrats had a good... sorry about that. My audio cut out again. We were about to go to Maine. I was talking about Maine and how the Democrats had a pretty good midterm there. Not only did they win the House race in Maine's 1st district, but they also won Maine's 2nd district, which was a district that went to Trump by like 9 points. Narrowly, they won it, and so for that reason, I think it's probably going to be a lean state. Furthermore, like it just tends to be Democrat. I don't think it's going to vote like 15 points left, 15 points for Biden like it used to for the Democratic Party, but I do think Biden's definitely favored here. Same thing with New Hampshire. New Hampshire has like a lot of retirees from like cities like New York, Massachusetts, who move up there to retire, and generally they're a little bit more liberal. And the state at face value would seem like a pretty a more Republican-leaning state, just because of how rural it is, and it's a whiter state overall. It has a very small minority population, so I do think that New Hampshire will probably be in Biden's favor. Minnesota, I think, will be in Biden's favor. There's a state Hillary Clinton won by 2 points. Democrats had a good midterm there. Amy Klobuchar actually won a huge amount in 2018. She won with over 60% of the vote. She won by 26-point margin, which is just insane for Minnesota. So, and I can't really see many Klobuchar Biden voters, you know. So I think it's probably leaning in Biden's favor for now at the very least. It might become a likely state, but we'll see. Michigan, this is the first flip. I think it'll flip to Biden. Trump only won by 0.2%. Democrats had a pretty decent midterm there. They could have won by a wider margin in the Senate race, but there's some reasons why that worked out the way it did. I think they'll flip to Biden. Trump only won it by 0.2 points, and Hillary Clinton was not a very good fit for the state. She barely campaigned there. And Biden has more ties with Michigan with the auto industry bailout in 2008, and he's just been polling pretty well against Trump. So I think that Michigan is favored to go to Biden at this point. Things could change. Same with Pennsylvania. Biden's from Pennsylvania. He's from Scranton, Pennsylvania specifically, right? So Scranton, Pennsylvania, he kind of built his career around that, saying I'm from Scranton, and he's just been polling pretty well there. Again, Donald Trump lost the state by the skin of his teeth in 2016. Democrats had a good midterm there. I think for now Biden is a pretty clear favorite in Pennsylvania, but things could change. Okay, now we are moving on to the tilt states. So these are the states that are most likely to decide the election. They're very close, and it's really hard to say. I can't say with confidence who's going to win in any of these, but I'm going to go ahead and make my best guess based upon the data that's available. The first state I'm going to fill in, since we're already in the Rust Belt region, is Wisconsin. The reason why I'm saying this is tilt Biden is because, again, this is one of the states Donald Trump lost by the skin of his teeth. Biden has been polling decently there. It is a state where demographics tend to favor the GOP, but again, 2018 was a good midterm for Democrats there. I think Hillary Clinton in 2016 really hit a floor. They re-elected a senator in Wisconsin in 2018 with a higher raw vote total than Hillary Clinton, who is Tammy Baldwin, who is a pretty progressive senator, who is a lesbian woman. So I can't see too many Baldwin Trump voters. I mean, Baldwin was running on more localized issues, but it seems like Biden is a very slight favorite to win there for now. Trump could pull ahead in the state. I don't know, but for now he's a slight favorite. Arizona, I would also say Biden's a slight favorite in. The reason why I say and this is putting him over the edge now. The reason why I say Biden's a slight favorite to win Arizona is because the state has become a lot more favorable to Democrats in recent elections. In 2016, it was pretty close, and Hillary Clinton performed a lot better than Obama, despite doing worse across the board. And there's a Hispanic population that's growing, which tends to vote Democratic. The Maricopa County, Phoenix, and the suburbs have become a little bit more friendly to Democrats as Democrats continue to make gains in suburban areas across the country and urban areas as well. So I think that the state for now leans in Biden's favor. Also, Democrats had a good midterm there again. Sinema won her Senate seat against Martha McSally, who's the incumbent, and she won with a higher raw vote total than Hillary Clinton. I think that the Democrats have everything to gain in Arizona and not much to lose. So that's why I'm saying it's tilting in Biden's favor. North Carolina, I think, tilts in Trump's favor. The reason why I say that is because the state, he did pretty well in 2016. He can still improve in the eastern regions of the state, too. He has room to grow there, and the GOP as a whole has room to grow there, like in the Appalachia regions. The only reason why I think the state still remains pretty competitive and is not a lean state for Trump is because Biden seems to be a decent fit for the state with its high African American population, as well as its corporate cities. Like Biden seems to be doing better with the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, and there's a lot of banking cities in North Carolina, like Charlotte, that I think will vote for Biden pretty heavily. So I do think it will be a very close state, definitely important to watch. So I'll keep that as tilt Trump. North Carolina, that's not North Carolina, that's Nebraska's 2nd district, which is essentially Omaha. I think it'll narrowly go to Biden. Democrats have been improving in this district. Hillary Clinton only lost it by like 2 points, and it's had a pretty consistent trend to the left recently. The Republicans narrowly held on to the House seat there in 2018, but that was mostly because Don Bacon was the incumbent, who was pretty popular and had a meh Democratic challenger. So for now, I think this leans in Biden. He can gain the suburban areas and the urban areas of Omaha and put him over the edge, but things could change. Finally, we need to talk about the really critical battleground state of Florida. This is probably the closest call of any of the states I filled on this map, and I can't say with confidence either way, but for now I'm going to tilt it slightly in Trump's column. But it's a very narrow tilt. I do think the state is definitely going to be very, very close, and Trump cannot afford to lose Florida. If he loses Florida, his path to victory becomes extremely narrow and delicate. Extremely narrow, like very narrow. It's a lot of electoral votes. The reason why I say tilts to Trump is because Democrats didn't necessarily have the best midterm here. They lost the Senate seat. They lost their Senate seat there of incumbent Bill Nelson, although he didn't really run too much of a campaign. They weren't able to win the governor's race, and turnout was just across the board there. Not as good as some of these other states where we were talking about how Democrats got more raw votes in 2018 than they did in 2016. But Trump's approval of seniors for the coronavirus has gotten a little bit worse, so that could definitely hurt him there. But it's a really tough call, and I do think it could go either way. But for now, I'm going to tilt it in Trump's favor. So, yep, that's the election map. 248 votes to Trump, 290 expected to go to Biden. Very, very close election, obviously. It'll be a nail-biter. I mean, it could end up being a landslide. Who knows? But for now, it's anybody's game, and things will swing back and forth as new polling comes out. We'll begin to see who's clear favorites in certain states. Maybe some states that were not expected to be competitive will become competitive. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please subscribe, and please look out for my Senate and House predictions that are coming soon, where I will talk in detail about the various Senate and House elections going on. And so yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye.